Hey guys, how's it going there on YouTube? Alexander Nava back with another video. This is the first in a series that is a untitled podcast, pending name by my girlfriend, Livin' La Vida Boca. Just kidding, I don't know if I'll use that, but I thought it was funny and maybe. So untitled podcast number 1. For today, I want to bring on a friend of mine. We actually met on TikTok, which is kind of crazy. Her name is Kirsten, and let me bring her on and let me have her tell us about herself and just everything. Kirsten, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you based?
Yeah. Hey guys. So my name is Kirsten. I am a photographer. I'm based out of Pennsylvania, but I shoot all over Pennsylvania and New York and sometimes other states, depending. I am a coffee lover. I also do ceramics. That's like my hobby since photography is kind of my profession. And I am huge on just encouraging the creative community.
Awesome. I'm still getting used to switching windows there, but thank you guys for bearing with me. Thanks so much, Kirsten. I think it was pretty cool how we met, but we'll talk about that more later on, definitely. The first question that I have for you, since I'm new to you, my audience is new to you. How did you get started with photography?
So that is the question. So when I was in middle school, I honestly remember stealing my dad's camera on and off to like go do photo shoots with my best friend where we would like give each other makeovers beforehand. And I remember enjoying being on the opposite side of the camera. So being the person who was taking the pictures as opposed to the person like modeling. I remember really enjoying that. And it kind of led into me taking some like senior portraits and stuff in high school. But it wasn't until college where I hit rock bottom in a sense. And I realized that I needed something to invest in for myself and for my creativity because I'd always been this creative person. I actually started out as a music major in college and I hated it. So I switched into comm and that's where I started studying photography a little bit. And then in 2016, I decided to make a business, but 2020 was when I decided to go full time.
Okay, and when you went full time, what did you start doing that was generating you income? I mean, we all have like niches that we break into and that we get successful in. So I'd be curious to see what type of photography kind of led you into full time.
Yeah. So I'd say the biggest thing that I shoot would be couples and portraits. And I have a lot of weddings that were booked out. Actually, they were supposed to be for this year, but in light of the pandemic, they were moved to next year. But those are probably my biggest bookers. And I recently jumped into boudoir as well. And those sessions have been very popular.
Yeah, I bet. Shooting couples and shooting weddings, I think for at least for me and you and a lot of photographers, we choose things like that because they're very easy to monetize, and of course we love them. We love shooting them. We love working with people, but me personally, I shoot them to generate income to help fund a passion. It doesn't have to necessarily be photography, but it could be. Do you have another passion that fuels, like maybe fine portraiture or product photo? Like, I don't know. Do you like shooting something else in your free time that you would do?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I enjoy about photography and what I enjoy to do in my free time, if I'm just shooting for myself, I love visual storytelling and the idea of being able to capture just like what someone's feeling, what their personality is like in a portrait. And that's why portraiture is really like, I guess, my home base for photography is because the thing that I've always loved is storytelling and connecting with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in your free time, you like shooting portraits?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Just making sure. Awesome. Yeah, that's really good to hear. And it's so crazy, how we met. But like I said, we'll definitely get into that. So now that you've been shooting full time, congrats. I think a lot of photographers want to get to that point, and it's definitely possible. And me and you create content that help people improve. And what I like about you too is that you're very, just like me, you're very business oriented, right? We understand that photography is fun, it's an art, but at the same time, if you want to do it professionally, you have to develop the side of business just like you would taking photos. With that being said, maybe what are some of your most recent accomplishments that you've been doing that, kind of, highlight your success?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to touch on something. I feel like for me doing photography and like you were saying, the business side, I think photography is only about 25% of like what we actually do. And the other 75% is just business.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I would
So
totally agree with that. Like, people, like I woke up in the morning, and I took the pictures of that lighthouse that you saw, right? I didn't get paid for
mhm,
those, but that was the 20% of the work. The 80% of the work is, yeah, editing. Sure, I guess another 10%. But the rest of that work is okay. How am I going to post these with engaging titles and tags so that people can find me to book work? How am I going to monetize these? Because yes, I did it for fun, but it'd also be great to run a business. So when am I going to find the time to post them, to find pricing, so that people can buy that print? And that applies not only to those, but like you said, wedding photos, right? I spent the majority
everything.
of my time, yeah, updating my website, trying to find ways to market to people. And I think that that's definitely, like you said, the part that people don't get to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I think,
yeah, I was just leading back to my question. Is there and there doesn't have to be, but is there a recent accomplishment where, maybe you booked X amount of weddings, or, you got X amount of inquiries or leads and you were like, this is a really good, accomplishment for me. It doesn't have to
yeah.
be numbers.
So, oh, yeah, yeah. Well, if we want to go on the numbers, I've actually been noticing this more recently, and surprisingly enough, from TikTok. But I have been generating a lot more leads every week. I would say before I was on TikTok and before I really showed up on my Instagram stories and got people to know me and connect with me, I was probably generating an average of maybe one lead a week. And I'm to the point where I'm turning people away because I'm one person, sadly. But I'm generating upwards of like anywhere from like 3 to 10 inquiries in one week, which is exponentially larger than
Right.
just like one here and there.
Right. Yeah, and that's amazing. My goals this year aren't too much lead generation. I did
Hmm.
shooting weddings full time for 3 years. It was my full time income. But now I'm working on becoming a full time educator and influencer. So now the thing with that is that's a huge leap, right? I stopped taking weddings full time 2 years ago, and now it's my part time thing. And now I'm making the leap to create content that other photographers can enjoy. I also see that you are marketing on social media. Now, are you using social media to market to other photographers and um, create mentorships and influence? Your influence is like another source of your business, or are you looking to eventually pursue that full time, or are you using it, purely just to get more leads for your photography?
That is an amazing question and something I've been thinking on a lot this year. So my end goal is I always want to continue shooting just because I'm inspired by people. I'm inspired by their stories. I love that human connection. But the end goal for me is honestly, I also want to create a space where I can network and engage and educate other photographers as well. I have plans on how to do that down the road, but it's a stepping stone in terms of making myself an approachable, friendly face, helping people start up. And it happened on accident. Like I started putting this stuff out there, just seeing if anyone would even receive it or want to listen. And it was actually received really well. And honestly, I'm just as encouraged by the people that have engaged with me online as they might be encouraged by like the tips and tricks that I've shared. But I think my end goal is kind of a 50-50 mix of continuing to pursue photography and also continuing to educate, network, and like market with other photographers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So to me, it sounds like, and this is another business tip. Your main goal right now is to just diversify, and you want to roll with
Mm-hmm.
whatever takes off, right? It's great that the
Yeah.
talk is generating you more leads, but if your influence goes further than you predict, you'll run with it, right? That sounds like about right. And so yeah, I think that that's awesome. Yeah, that's something similar to what I would say, myself too. While I want to eventually get to a point where I can just write articles and make videos all day, who wouldn't want to do
I'd
that?
watch them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if I started getting more bookings, I'm not necessarily going to turn those down. Um, so with all your experience that you've had, and I did let you know this particular one ahead of time because I wanted you to see if you had any. Did you have any particular photographer horror story that you could share with us?
So I have a few, but the biggest one, and I would say it's like rock bottom on terms of like bad experiences you can have. I shared that one on TikTok, but I would be happy to reshare that on here as well, because I didn't dive into all of the details of it, just for the sake of time and everything.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so pretty early on in my photography career, I was hired to shoot a wedding of someone that I actually knew. And it was for a really low rate because I was trying to gain experience, build my portfolio. And so I show up on the wedding day, ready to rock and roll. And there is another photographer there that I didn't know was going to be there.
Oh no.
She was much more experienced than me. She certainly got paid a significant amount more. She worked way less time than I did. And I was dropped into this situation where I was still expected to shoot, but I wasn't told
Oh my
beforehand. And
gosh.
we did not work together in conjunction at all. Um, so I tried to kind of smooth things over, introduce myself, kind of treat it like a second shooter type of situation, just to make the best out of a weird situation. Um, and it didn't go well. I essentially got told to stay out of her way.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so that's what I tried to do. I was like, I will not make a bigger issue out of this than it needs to be. And I was very respectful about like not wanting to take away from her creative process. But then everything that I would set up, she would take my shots, which was kind of discouraging, like as a newbie, because I was trying to like do things that were a little different, unique, maybe more stylistic for me. And I ended up being very discouraged at the end of the day. But when it came time for the reception, she ducked out probably, I think it was like right after the cake
Oh
cutting.
no.
And I ended up staying through the reception. And then suddenly the mother of the bride was pulling me to do everything. And I had gotten paid this like tiny, tiny fee. The bride had never even wanted to have another photographer there and only ended up using my work. So it was just this weird thing.
So did the couple ever tell you why they had her there?
The mother of the bride hired her without
Uh,
like consulting the
oh,
couple.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I
It
have
was a
never
mess.
yeah, I've never had that happen, but that sounds crazy. The one thing that I will, note on that is um I definitely know what it's like to get people in your way from like videographers and things like that. I think we've all
Hmm.
experienced that. But I think that the other photographer could have handled it a lot better. You're a beginner. If I was in that situation and I was the other person, I would want to. My client is paying me to get the best photos that I can. Why not coordinate with the other photographer that they paid? Whether it be
Yeah.
accidental or not, to make sure that you guys get the best photos collectively. I mean, and I think this is a thing that you say online. You say community over competition. Is that right? Yeah,
Every day.
every day. And I think that she did not, or he, I'm not sure if it was a he or she, but I think they did not handle it the right way.
Yeah.
And what also sucks about that is the if the mother of the bride or the groom, whoever hired that photographer, was on the same page as their children or child, then that money that they used could have potentially gone to you, and potentially even less of that since you were still new. So it would have been a win-win. You would have ended up with more money, and they would have ended up with more money left over for other things in the wedding. But that is a great horror story.
Can I tell you the cherry on top?
Yes, please. I love cherry on tops.
So where I originally started doing photography, it was a very small town in New York, and I ran into her a week later.
The mother of the bride or the photographer?
The photographer.
Oh no.
I ran into her a week later at this coffee shop that I like to frequent, and it was so awkward because she came up to me and she tried to act like this weird thing hadn't just happened. And I was very like, hello, very kind, very open, but I was like, what?
Like you were
it just like, it caught me off guard.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
but go ahead.
No, I just had a question, or actually finish your story. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've adapted my contract to say that, like, if there is another photographer, I'm essentially the one to provide them. If another one is hired, like, it's not necessarily like my liability if I show up and someone else is shooting. And even with videographers and stuff, like I state, like, we should be told who the other person is ahead of time so we can exchange our information and kind of like talk a little bit about the day of.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good lesson. So I think for photographers who are listening, when you encounter failures, right, or horror stories, try to learn from them, right? Kirsten, I apologize. It's hard for me to talk today.
You're okay.
With my first podcast. But Kirsten, what she did was she took that information and she learned from it. So she put something in her contract that will hopefully, prevent this in the future. You might think I sound crazy for this, Kirsten, but recently I added a paparazzi guest clause.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. So we've all experienced this, or at least most of us should have, where we're shooting a wedding and I'm shooting down the aisle and Uncle Jim and Aunt Susie stick their phones off the side of the aisle, and worst of all, with their little LED light on their phone. And they're paying me thousands of dollars to shoot these photos. And when I send them to them, like, I'm sorry, I want to make the photos the best I can, but I can't be productive and edit out every single cell phone. If it's a quick edit, I don't care. But if you want me to edit out cell phones, I'm going to bill you an hourly rate. So, and I obviously word it much nicer, and I tell my clients this. I'm just ranting for the audience here, but what I tell them is, I want you to get your value worth out of me. If you let your client or your guests know ahead of time that you don't want any cell phones out during the ceremony, that would be greatly appreciated. And I'm not picky because I think that the reception is great for cell phones. It's a party time, take selfies, right? Do whatever you want. But I absolutely can't stand cell phones and ceremonies, and I think we've all experienced that. But you telling me that you added a clause in your contract reminded me of that. So I might be.
I actually requested none at my wedding. Cell phones. I made my guests put them away at my own wedding.
Mm-hmm. Right. And because I'm sure you probably hired a really nice and talented photographer, and as a photographer, you probably knew that was coming. So.
Yeah.
But my quick, and I'll make this super quick, my quick photography horror story, it's not necessarily my own, but it was me. So when I was 18, I was working for a company doing weddings, and I typically asked not to work Sundays because that was my day off, right? Like because I had a job during the week and I would shoot for them on Saturdays. And so what happened was I got this call on a Sunday morning, and they were like, a photographer didn't show up. And this was an hour and a half, no, 2 hours west of where I live. And so my boss was like, can you make it? The ceremony starts in an hour. And I'm like sitting there like, one, I don't even know if my camera is charged, lady. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, and two, I just woke up. Like, it's in the morning. Like, I sleep in. It's Sunday. Like, let me be. And so, anyway, I got in my car, just threw everything I could, and I rushed there. And, working for a different company, you represent them. I was like, okay, I want to make sure that when I get there, they understand what's going on, because I don't want to get there and be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry your photographer didn't show up, I'm the replacement. No. I want to get there, them knowing that it's not my problem, and that I'm there to help them. And so that's what happened, luckily. And they were super appreciative. They delayed the ceremony by like 30 minutes. I did speed there. And the rest of the day went smoothly. They were really appreciative. They gave me a tip and everything, and we were all good. But I just hope that you never have to experience, well, if you don't work for anybody else, you'd probably get a couple call you. But I hope that nobody has to experience that, because quick horror story over. So what are your thoughts on that?
You just reminded me of another one, actually.
Oh no, go for it.
Somewhat similar. Go for it.
Yeah, I think these are fun. I'd love to hear if you have a similar one, because those get crazy. So I'd love to hear.
They do. So I have never worked for another company. I've always been just myself, just a sole proprietor. Anyway, I was shooting a wedding that was supposed to take place in September. And I had like several like calls with them, like leading up to the planning and everything was good, fine, and nice. I had recently just moved to Pennsylvania, so as background, but the wedding was in New York, which to where they were getting married, it was like a 2.5, 3-hour drive. And I wake up early one Saturday morning because like I really had to go to the bathroom. So I'm running to the bathroom and I check my phone on a whim, make sure I'm not missing anything important. And I see multiple text messages late at night from the groom and the bride asking what time I'm going to be there the next day, which was 2 months ahead of their wedding day. But I'd already had been asleep when I saw these messages.
What?
So I got them when I woke up, like to go to the bathroom in the morning. And I wake up real quick and I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? So I called them and I'm like, hey guys, so I have you written on my schedule for such and such a date. What do you mean? What time am I arriving in the morning? And they were like, oh yeah, we're getting married today. They had never updated me on their wedding day. And I literally I got ready in 20 minutes. Thankfully, my camera was charged, which that's just a miracle. I threw on some clothes, wake up my husband, and I'm like, I'm leaving for New York. Okay, bye. Throw my gear in the car. I sped the whole way there. At one point, I thought I was going to pee my pants. I was trying to get there so fast and didn't think I could stop. I made it there 15 minutes before the ceremony. Got a couple shots of the bride getting zipped in her dress, one shot of the groom, and then they walked down the aisle. And thankfully, the rest of the day went super smooth. And it was, honestly, we got some phenomenal shots. It was a cool wedding. She had she was equestrian majors in college. Yeah. So she had some horses there. But it was one of the most stressful mornings I've ever had.
That sounds so crazy. And yeah, it's literally just it happened to me. When I got there, the bride was literally done getting ready and it was all right, down the aisle. And I was like, oh no, yeah. I was struggling. So,
oh man.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad that we covered these because I think that they're entertaining, but they're just fun to listen to.
That's why I have multiple client check-ins now, a week a month,
And
and so on. I text them the night before.
yeah, and see, that's another thing. If you're a beginner photographer, you want to have like a contract, even if you don't know what you're doing and you're like, how the heck do I start a contract? Even if you're like, don't want to put in the work, at least write down on a freaking piece of paper and just put when you're shooting, what time you're shooting, when you're going to give them the stuff by, even if it's just that, because then if they're like, oh no, we booked you for this day, then it's like you at least have something that's like, okay, no,
Yeah.
no, this is the day that you paid me for. So, and like, Kirsten and I were both saying, we updated our contracts based on the experiences that we come across. So you're going to start with something basic, but you'll definitely update it. And if you get enough funds, you can even pay somebody to make one for you. So great stuff. So moving on, we are both portrait photographers in our free time. And I brought up the idea of doing just a quick critique of each other's work for fun, for my audience. Because I think that, one, you can never stop learning. And two, people can learn from your photos too. So I thought we can go ahead and get some knowledge. What do you think?
I think that sounds great.
Awesome. If you want, do you want to go first or do you want me to critique your photos first?
Let's have you critique first.
Okay, so if you guys have been seeing this screen, because I've been accidentally putting it up, it's the Lightroom screen for the critique that I wanted to do. So we have my photos and we have Kirsten's photos. So we're going to start with hers. And I want to start by saying to everybody, if you are critiquing somebody's photos, there's no ill intent in regards to putting them down. And I have a lot of people, so really quickly before we do this, I have a lot of people on TikTok saying my photos are terrible, saying my photos look bad. And that's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I know, right? People are crazy. But what I say is, it's kind of crazy because as other photographers, telling me my photo looks bad doesn't provide me anything of value. And if you want to be a hater, that's fine. But I've had people that are trying to help me who are like, I hope you take this the right way. Don't take this the wrong way, but your photos are bad. I'm like, well, I can, and they're following me. So I'm like, okay, so you're not trying to be mean. You're trying to be, I guess, adding to the conversation. But me sitting there and telling somebody that their photos are bad doesn't add to the conversation. Providing critique does, and critique is not a bad thing. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Constructive criticism.
Exactly. Constructive criticism. So with that being said, let's get started. I love to take a look. So I submitted 5 of my favorite portraits and Kirsten submitted her 5 to me. And that's what we're taking a look at. So the first one that we have is here, black and white. Kirsten, do you want to tell us just a little bit about this so we have a backstory?
Yeah, so this was actually an old coworker of mine. And while I was still at my corporate job, I wanted to get some more portraits with my new camera because I hadn't done a lot of shooting on it. So I asked him to go out with me one day after work and just grab a couple quick headshots around. This was actually taken in front of a gym, which proves that you don't need a cool location to take good pictures. And I thought that the wall was really interesting because it was split tone, but I thought it didn't do justice in color. So I threw it in black and white because the contrast was what really caught my eye on this. So I wanted to have that stand out in the portrait.
Yeah, thanks for the background on that. I love hearing the story behind photos, just because it lets you connect with the photo so much more than just me looking at this. What I see here is the first thing that I love that you did, this facial expression. I don't know if your coworker is always like a model, but the facial expression that he shows here is just so freaking phenomenal. Oh, I'm zoomed in a little too much there. It's just so phenomenal. It tells a story, whether it's true or not. I can tell that, he's not he's serious, but not too serious. He exudes confidence in this photo. And again, this is just the story that I see. And I love that you were able to get this watch here. I am a fan of like little details like this. Like you could have easily, cut this off a little bit higher. And I love the little fringy hair. I think it's awesome. The only thing that I would have, oh, I'm losing Kirsten here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, hello.
Oh, there we are.
There we go.
Oh.
Cut off for a second there.
Okay.
I think we're back. Okay. So yeah, the little fringy hair, that's cool. The only thing that I think I would have done differently, and this one's more of a stylistic choice, I would have bumped the contrast up a little bit, like just slightly. And it kind of bugs me that this wall isn't perfect.
Is it not quite straight?
No. But again, that's the, and then this one is more of a choice too. I like that you cropped in and didn't get the elbows because I love tight shots, but I think I would have like even cut it a little more, and then that way you have less head
I almost
space.
wish his hands were in it.
Yeah, like especially
I
if
was
he has
thinking
like,
about that.
especially I love the look in black and white. I love the look of like rugged like man hands that are really textured.
Yeah, and he had like these really cool Celtic rings. I have hand shots from that session, but this portrait stood out to me.
Yeah, but other than that, that's the only thing I would do. It's a great shot. Definitely could see why you sent this in. All right, let's get on to the next one just because I don't want this segment to take too long. Ooh, what a beautiful photo. Do you want to tell me the background story on this one?
Yeah, so this is a friend of mine. She actually has like a body inclusion page because she is like a little bit more of like a plus size person. So she's done some modeling and stuff, and I was helping her build up her portfolio. She like is all for just like feeling confident and like sexy and awesome in your own skin. And I wanted to create some intrigue with her portraits because she has this very bold and bright personality. So I wanted to get something a little bit different that kind of showed like something playful and fun, but also just bright and warm and just a little different.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing, well, before that, let me just say I'm a fan of this photo. I really love that we're looking in this. Is this a mirror? And I love how you can see her hair here. I'm a huge fan. And I love the composition. Honestly, other than that, there's not much. I'm going to be honest here. I don't think there's much critique for this photo. But that's only because it's like my style and I'm like, oh yeah, I dig the vibes. The only thing that I noticed is that you are shooting at ISO 8000.
Oh yeah, that was when I first got my camera and I didn't realize it was on auto ISO.
Yeah. So you're shooting at 2/50th of a second. So looking at your focal length, you're at 46. So let's say 50 millimeters. If we're following just the general rule, you multiply that twice. So you could shoot at 1/100th of a second. But to really avoid handshake, I'd probably shoot at like 1/120th.
Yep.
But doing that, I know it's not going to bring it a ton, but it could have helped bring that ISO down a little bit. So that's
it does have a little added grain.
Yeah, and I think that's fine because I think I could tell you added grain as a style, but I think capturing it without grain so that we're able to make the choice in post whether we want to add grain is
Absolutely.
for sure the best way to go. But like I said, I actually don't have many critiques for this one. I thought that this was a beautiful shot. You did amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah. And let's see the next one. It looks like we got some boudoir going on. You want to tell us about this
I
one?
wanted to throw one shot in there. Yeah. So boudoir is one of my newer realms of photography, but it is quickly becoming one of my favorite types just because I love making women feel so good, so confident in their own skin. It's awesome to me. It's like magical. So this was my first paid boudoir session. So that was also kind of like why I wanted to include it. And the thing that I loved was, not to say anything like bad or anything, but this model in particular, her skin was actually very broken out. And so I loved that the way that I lit this, and then obviously like in post as well, I felt like I made her look like flawless and glowy and
Oh
just like
yeah.
absolutely amazing because she was so self-conscious about it. So I felt like in camera I did a good job, and then in post I was able to do like a good job just like helping her get over like this one little thing that she kept getting stuck on for how she looked. But she's like a mom of three kids, and like it was amazing for me to be able to like help build her confidence in a way that she didn't feel like she had kids and like wasn't sexy anymore or anything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure shooting boudoir, a lot of people struggle with that self-image. And like you said, shooting boudoir helps people feel confident, feel comfortable in their own skin. And I think that's a great thing. And we talked about this on TikTok a little bit, but not just for women, but I mean, I am a big fan of male boudoir. I don't
Yeah.
shoot any boudoir. It's something that I've wanted to get into, but being a male, it is harder to get into female and male boudoir, um, especially
Yeah.
female boudoir, because there are a lot of male photographers that give us bad names. And I know that it's like that for everything. And I know that it's never going to change, right? There will always be bad people. But I think that we have to really analyze people for who they are. You know,
Yeah.
and and I think the biggest part in doing that is putting your personality out there. And that's kind of what we're doing
Yeah.
here, right? People hopefully will watch us, get to know Kirsten. Hopefully they'll get to know me. But let me stay on topic here. This is a little side rant. Um,
On that note, though,
yeah.
Alex, Axiom Boudoir, he's a guy on TikTok.
Mhm.
He's also on Instagram. He's a male boudoir photographer, and he is phenomenal.
He's killing it.
Yeah, I'll send you his username later.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, because like I said, I don't see a lot of male boudoir, and I think a lot of people also, when they think of boudoir, right, they always think like, um, if they don't know what it is, they'll just think like lingerie, stuff like that. Like, and I
Yeah,
think it's important for
I think people
people.
get scared by it.
Yeah, and I think people have to remember that it's only as much as you're comfortable with, and we're gonna try to push you because Kirsten, you know, her job is to make you feel comfortable, confident, and just exude, you know, glow. And but if you're not comfortable, for example, with a top that maybe shows as much, she's not going to make
Hmm.
you put that on. We're going to take a step back. And that's for all types of
Yeah.
shoots. If you're a
Yep, that's the
photographer,
first thing I tell my clients.
yeah, if you're a photographer and you're pushing outfits on your clients that they aren't comfortable in, well, one, it's not a right thing to do. But two, they're not going to look confident because they don't feel confident. So, yeah, side note over. um, I really, really like you said, the skin on this photo. I think you did a good job because sometimes, and I know we've all done this in the beginning when we're retouching skin, it's so easy to turn sliders too much and then not have texture. But what I like
Hmm.
here is that I can still see the texture in her skin. It's not completely gone. And I won't even get into frequency mapping in Photoshop. That's an advanced skill that's used for fashion. When photographers like me and Kirsten are working in weddings and batches, it doesn't make sense for us to process them like that because it's going to take way too much time and the client is going to have to pay way too much money. So sticking to purely speaking on Lightroom, I think that this is beautifully retouched because I could still see the texture in her skin and it's glowing. It's beautiful. I also love that you're starting to see more of Kirsten's style, her photo style, right? I can see a lot of the lifted blacks that you do. a lot of the warm tones in in her skin that you really brought out. I love that, and I think it was a struggle for me to find my style as a photographer, and I still don't have a style, and I'm cool with that. I just edit photos how I see them, and I think we all do. But once you kind of do it for a while, you'll start to see what you like. So, props on you for that. The only critique that I could add here is I thought the blacks were lifted a little bit too much. But again, that's more of a stylistic choice. So you could say I'm completely wrong and you could be fine. And then the other thing I would say is the composition. I love the negative space up here, but I think there's a little bit, just a tad too much. Like I would have like probably brought it in like this. Just
ever so slightly.
Yeah. And then other than that, I like it. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And the last critique I did, I told Kirsten I just got off a critique. We had the same issue here, and I do it too. So I don't want you to think that I'm picking on you because we all do it. You're shooting at ISO 4500 at f4 at 1/250th of a second with a, if I look in the metadata, you're using a 24-70 2.8 Tamron. So that tells me that
for that one I was.
Yeah, that tells me that you had room with your aperture and you had room in your shutter speed a little bit to be able to bring that ISO down. So
that's a great note. Yeah. I actually really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I feel like I don't always focus on the technical part. I just focus on more so like conceptual and composition a lot of the times.
Yeah. And,
that's one of my weaknesses.
And like, on my social media, I'm a very technical photographer, right? Like I feel like I'm not very, and this is funny, I'm not very, when people say that my photos are bland, I kind of get what they mean. In some sense, right? I'm not saying they're right. I'm saying I kind of get what they mean where I am not, especially up until recently, I haven't been too experimental in regards to certain artistic choices. Recently I have been exploring with a bunch of different angles and artistic choices and finding my own style. But the technical side is where I am a lot comfortable in, and I love teaching photographers about that. So what I do when I shoot is I start my ISO at the lowest that it could possibly be. In my camera, it's like 54 or something, ISO 50, because I have a Sony. And then I start by analyzing, am I shooting a subject that needs to be frozen? So something that's moving or no? Okay, no, I'm going to start by setting my aperture. Do I want a blurred background? Do I not care? If I'm like, okay, a blurred background is the style that I'm going for, then I'm going to set my f-stop to the lowest or to the desired effect. So if you still want to be able to see things, then maybe you bump it up to like a 4 or whatever you want. And then once that's done, I set my shutter speed to double the focal length of my lens. So if I'm shooting with 100, I'll set it to 200. Making my minimum of 120 because I have slightly shaky, like I'm not the steadiest with my hands. And then after that, I expose with my ISO. That way I know that it's the lowest that it could be. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that's what I always do, but
that's a great way to go through like your settings though. It really is.
Yeah. And if I'm doing a moving subject, I do it the opposite way. So I do shutter speed first because my first priority is freezing the motion. So
yeah. No, that's a great explanation.
Just a good little tip there. All right, let's look at the next one. We have a portrait here in the fall. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so I don't usually take too many senior sessions, but this was the first one that I did for 2020. She's a 2021 senior, obviously. And she was giving me a lot of confidence and she felt so comfortable in front of the camera. So I wanted to give her a couple of things that felt a little more like model-esque to me. And one thing that I feel like really stands out is always like the hands. And so I wanted to create some intrigue by giving her some dimension and like motion with her hands because she was serving it up. So it was there, it was ready. And I knew she was comfortable and confident.
Yeah, I can see that. Again, that's my first note here is the expression of her exudes confidence, and I love that. I love when shots exude confidence, and not all of them have to, but
Yeah.
particularly if you can get a emotion that you can easily convey through the camera, that's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
So whether you're trying to communicate sadness, happiness, confidence, whatever it might be, if you can look at an image and another person can be like, oh yeah, they're like definitely, confident, then, or they're definitely sad or whatever it might be, then you're doing a good job. What I love about this right off the bat are the freaking colors. Look at these colors. Like, I love it's fall, and I can tell that you brought out these oranges for sure. And
Hmm.
because if you look at her hair and her skin, that's you developing your style again. So you did a really good job in the coloring, and if I gotta be honest here, I think you nailed the composition. Um, you know, the only thing that I could really add to this is straightening this horizon line.
Yeah.
Um,
And I remember straightening that a little bit actually,
I
but
think
even more
see
so,
it's
I see
hard.
what you
It's
mean.
hard for me to tell. I think it's like here.
Yeah.
Um, or I can't tell if it starts up here, but what I can tell, what my eye can tell, is that it was crooked. And then
Yeah.
because I did this is too close now, so then I have to bring it in. And actually, I prefer this look because of the headspace. But my only complaint, and I would bring it
Hmm.
down because I love, love, love. Oh, can I bring this higher? Hold on. I love, there we go. I love, love, love the look of these jeans. The
Me too.
colors that they bring in with the orange is just beautiful. So if we take a look at the before, I can't even, won't even show me. Well, either way, that's weird. It says before, but it's not showing me. Okay. Anyway, this is what I would do. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing, and again, this is what I found in my last one, that's consistent. You're shooting with 50 millimeter, was that 1.4? Yeah, 50
It is a
millimeter 1.4,
1.4.
and you're shooting at ISO 400. So like I said, we all do this, and it's
Hmm.
not like it's not like, oh my gosh, I ruined my image. It's a freaking great image. It's one of those technical things that it's like, could I have brought that down? Yes. Did it make a change in the image? No. It's more of like something that you keep in the back of your head, right? And in this
Hmm.
image particularly, it's not going to make a difference. Oh my gosh, look at the crispness in her eye. You did such a good
Her
job.
eyes were gorgeous.
You
I just
nailed it.
realized there's also, I must have missed a spot or like weirdly gotten something on her face. There's like a little
This?
speck of green
Yeah, I see that.
over to the
Oh,
right. No,
this
that's
right
her nose
here.
ring. Yeah. That must have like tagged in the wrong spot or something.
Yeah,
I
there we go.
just
Yeah,
noticed it when I was looking at it. Yeah.
I didn't even notice that until we zoomed in. But that's not the biggest deal because I mean it could have been glare, or maybe you hit the brush there.
Or
Um,
even maybe some dust or
or maybe
something.
even some dust. Yeah, I mean, not the biggest deal in the world. Oh yeah, I didn't now I notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I noticed it. I was looking at it and I was like, I don't remember that being there, but it
Let
is.
me see. Did I add it? No, I didn't add a brush or anything there. Okay.
No.
Well, I'm glad that we found that. I didn't even notice that. But yeah, the biggest thing that I would say is just I would say consistently trying to keep your aperture as low as possible, or sorry, your your ISO is a good
Hmm.
technical skill to develop. And while in this case
Yeah.
it wouldn't have made a difference really at all, it's good to keep that rule in the back of your head so that when you shoot something in super super low light like this boudoir portrait that's at ISO 4500, you really
Hmm.
take advantage of that without even thinking. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, beautiful portrait. Love the hair. Love the model. Good work overall, Kirsten.
Thank you.
And we have one more photo for you. We're going a little bit longer than I thought, but that's okay. It's a podcast. It's long form, so it's okay. We're chugging along. Um, This fifth image, tell me about this. This is so, there's so much going on here. What can you tell me about this?
Okay, so this was a more stylized boudoir session. She wanted like almost like a casino feel, hence the kind of like smoky haze, hence the lighter. She's wearing a little black dress, which for the purpose of like this picture with the lighter, it was more about her like holding it in front of her face and creating that like danger right there. But she wanted like almost like a casino, like Royale feel. And so I did something to create more of a filmy vibe. I will say that the lighting on this, I know my ISO is going to be cranked up for this one because I used a single light when lighting it. And I was also shooting through pantyhose to get that filmy, soft effect. That was all in camera ahead of time. And it just gave us that really like soft, like light flare. That's why she's kind of out of focus, but like she's also still in focus at the same time.
Yeah, I see.
It's just this very soft, romantic vibe.
So that's the secret, huh? Pantyhose.
Pantyhose. Yep,
Yeah.
nude pantyhose.
Okay. Yeah, looking at this, I will say your ISO is actually not that high. It's 1,000. So
oh really? I was thinking I remember shooting this and it being very dark.
for a low light photo, so where you can see the lighter, honestly 1,000 with no external lighting. You didn't use any other lights, right?
I just had one light off to her right, well, her left side, I suppose.
Was it a flash? I don't see a flash on here. Maybe it didn't pick up.
No flash.
Oh, okay, that's why. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, so for a single light, oh yeah, you can see the light in your eye. For a single light and being dark enough to get this lighter, your ISO is actually not as high as you think it was. But if you did want to bring that down, like we said, you're shooting at 1/250th of a second with a 50 millimeter. So, well, I guess I could see why, because if there was a little breeze in the room and the flame was moving, then I could see why you shot at that. So
well, also her breath and shooting through the pantyhose darkens it considerably.
Oh, were you also like if you also weren't stable? I could see why you shot that, because if you're holding the camera and then trying to, I don't know how you did the.
I'm holding it like if this is my camera right here, like I'm holding it over top and also taking the shot.
So you're not as stable. So honestly, the 250th is probably a safe bet, and honestly, you probably did what you were supposed to do, in a perfect world, right? But so let me start by saying I love the style of this. I love that you got creative and used pantyhose, because I'm the type of guy, like I said, I don't get creative like you guys do. I'm the type of guy that's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna figure out how to stylize this in post. Like, that's me.
As little post as possible for me.
See, so that's where we differ. So it's like, what I respect.
That's why my ISO is so high. Yeah,
right. I respect that about Kirsten. So I'd say the good job with that, and good job with the composition. The only other thing that I would question, and this is again a stylistic choice, I personally don't know if this plant adds to the photo. I would have either
I kind of wished it wasn't in that shot.
I would have brought it in more, right? So that it's like, yes, plant right here, like taking up some more space, or I would have completely excluded that.
It just kind of reaches right in, but it's not like prominent. I get that.
Right. So I would have said either own it with the plant or throw the plant out.
Yeah.
But other than that, the composition is beautiful. I love the look of the lighter, and I do like the color. I don't know if it's. I would have tried to not make her skin as orange, but that's more of like I said, that's where you go into more of like, okay, is that a good style versus my style? So it's not something I could tell you for sure, because you may like it with the orange. And that's
skin tones are so important and so hard.
Yes. And I remember when I first started using Lightroom, I was afraid of the color panel. I was afraid and I'll be the first to admit, I was afraid to go into the hues, mess with the saturation, mess with the luminance, and play with
Uh-huh.
those. And I have to tell people, if you're not using them, don't be afraid, because that's where you develop your own style. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so, but overall, I love the composition of this. I love that you got creative and you used pantyhose to get this, and that's
That's just
just,
like one tip for
yeah,
like my bag of tricks.
you're resourceful for doing that, because I don't get creative like that. So, um, yeah, that's what I got for you. What'd you think? Was I too harsh on you? I don't think so. I thought it was
No.
good.
No, and I'll be the first one to say, like, and I said this already, like, when it comes to photography, the technical side is a little bit more on my weakness. Like, I will take a great shot, but I might have to adjust a few things in post. And like, I love hearing the way that your brain works, because for me, like, I'm like in this weird alternate zone when I'm shooting, that I'm just like, okay, how can I make this shot like even more conceptually interesting? Like, it's all about that story for me almost.
Right, right, for sure. And like I said, it's like this is what I think in my head. But when we're
Hmm.
out in the field, we can't always stay true to what we think. Like, I can tell you this all
True.
day, and we're about to look at my portraits, and I may notice, like, why the hell was my ISO at this? Um, but it's about learning from that, right? It's not about, nobody's a perfect photographer. It's all about looking at your own photos too and trying to learn from that. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, do you want to take a look at at my photos and give me some feedback? I think it would be fun.
Yeah,
All right, I'm a little scared here. So, let's get started. Do you have them pulled up on your phone too, or your laptop?
I do have them pulled up on my laptop right now.
Okay. If you want, we'll just go in the order that they're here. They're no particular order. And you could just
Mhm.
pull them up on your laptop too. All right. So the first photo that we have is this one.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to say that she pops right out of that background. Like, she is very clearly the focal point, and I love how much she stands out. I think like the coloring is beautiful. Her skin tone is just like luminous, and I absolutely love that. I also love talking about the rule of thirds a little bit here. She's like right on that line,
Yeah.
on like the right hand side.
Yeah,
And
you
so
can
the
see.
composition, like, it kind of leads you through the photo. So like to my eye, that's like very appealing. I actually, did you use additional lighting when you took this, or did you do
I
this all in post?
did all my photos that I sent you use off camera
Hmm.
flash. And
That's what I was thinking.
if you're wondering, dang, Alex, why are they all popping out? Like, it's not any editing tricks, which you can certainly do, but
Hmm.
it'll take a lot of time. It's
True.
off camera flash. And I've been meaning to make a YouTube video about it, because it is the most underrated thing in photography. And it's a little
Absolutely.
crazy to learn. I will, and well, it's not crazy, but it's a big step. But
Yeah.
yes, we have different. If you guys notice a different trend in our photos, in regards to the foreground or the subject being a different exposure than the background, that is because I'm
Hmm.
using flash. So thanks for noticing
It
something
looks
like that.
phenomenal. It really does. I noticed that first thing with all of your images was your subjects really, really pop. And it makes it seem like more like something you would see if you were like flipping through like a magazine or something. Like,
Right,
that stands out in terms of like how they're brought out of the
right.
image.
Maybe I should give
My
you.
only
Yeah, before we
Yeah.
get into it, maybe I should give you, like, I love hearing the background stories for my audience. Maybe I should give you the background story for a couple of these, just to kind of add
Yes.
some content in there. So her name is Maria, and she was one of the people that first modeled for me when I was like 15 years old. And this is
You were
her.
15?
No, no, this was no, not this one. I have photos of her when I was 15. Um,
Okay, I was about to say.
yeah, no, no, she is much older. This was taken in 2018, so 2 years ago. Or I think I was looking at the wrong one. This was 2019. But we have worked a lot together. So we are very comfortable with each other. And this photo, we went just to a park at a beach and we did the shoot. We did a lot of shoots. And I feel like this is one of the first shoots where I was really getting to learn my style. So, like Kirsten said earlier, too, almost all of these shots, probably all of them, are outside. They're at locations that are free. You don't need money to rent locations if you don't have it. If your client has a budget, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I think the only thing that I would say about this photo is compositionally, I think it could be just a little more intriguing. So what I would do is I really like a lot of information like in my foreground, midground, background, that type of deal. I think when shooting this, I might have just like adjusted my angle a little bit. So I was shooting almost from the bottom of her foot up towards her.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think
totally
it would
know what
have.
you mean. And
Yeah, I think it would have given like a little more of like a leading line into the photo, but like literally that is the only thing I would ever change about this.
yeah, and I think that like I said earlier, that's where I struggle, and that's where I'd love to hear your thoughts because I am a very, very technical person, and sometimes I struggle to get creative with things like that. And it shows in, well, not shows, but I especially feel it in my wedding work. Like, I don't like cheesy poses. And so in order to get good poses that aren't cheesy, I have to get creative. And that's where it's really like a mental wall for me. And so I never even thought about doing that. See, what I was thinking was I was using the lines of the path to try to lead into her, but then they kind of try to lead you back. And so using some of her leg actually might have been, that's a really good idea. Thank you.
It feels balanced though. Like I am not unhappy with this portrait at all, but I think just to push it that next step further, like just changing your angle that you were shooting at would have like made it like pop even more because like the lighting's there, the color's there, like she's very engaging. Like I want to look at this and I'm loving it.
Yeah, and I think it was the same with your photos too. I think they're all really high quality. If anybody got those delivered to them, 100% they'd be happy. We're just definitely trying to help each other improve. And I am so grateful I have somebody who is more creative than technical because that's where I struggle. So thank you.
Well, I'm happy you're technical because I need that too.
Awesome. Thanks.
And it doesn't, just because I've like been doing this, like I just want to say this for people who are listening, just because I've been doing this for like 5 years at this point doesn't mean that like I'm not still learning. If I ever stop learning, we're going to have bigger issues to deal with.
That is true. None of us are ever going to stop learning. So thank you. Let's move on to the next one. So I tried not to include too many of the same people, but I feel like just recently, so all of the things that I included are more recent because it's where I've really started to find more of my style. I have older photos that I love, but these recent shoots, I've been developing my own style of shooting and I just love it. And so that's why they're kind of all recent, but they're all different subjects except for her. Again, this is the same subject, Maria, but this one was shot in January and we went out and it was storming that day. Or not storming, it was cloudy. So we had zero sunlight. Like what you see in the background is basically what we had. And the only reason that she looks like this is because I brought off-camera lighting. And yeah, that's the backstory on that one. She's got a coat because it's cold, and I thought it was a cool coat. So.
Could you tell us where you had your flash positioned? Because I think that would be interesting for people to know too, like as we're looking at these photos.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So that's an awesome idea because I think when people start with flash, they're like, where do I position my flash? And the more...
I mean, you can like see where it is because of her eyes, but if someone's getting into it... it's helpful to look and like know like where it was positioned.
Yeah, so the flash was positioned off to the right on the top, angled down towards her face at about like a 45-degree angle or so. And I used a a beauty dish. So what you see
Okay.
in her eye, that beautiful catch light, that circle,
Yeah.
the only reason that that's there is because I'm using a beauty dish. So definitely a great question. I didn't even think about that because I get into the motion of it. So yeah, camera flash, off to the right, to the top, facing down. And
Awesome.
if you are, for the people who are watching, if you are shooting with one light, that's how I recommend it for portraits. Once you add more lights, and I'm going to do a video on this, then you can start to do things like backlighting that'll help separate your subject from the background,
Absolutely.
and fill lights. So, but yeah, sorry, you can continue.
Oh, you're good. I actually just wanted to touch on this because I noticed this in all your photos. You did a beautiful job getting a catch in all of your models' eyes. When you're taking a portrait, the first thing like that you can do to really even engage whoever's consuming that product, like with the subject, is by lighting their eyes the right way. And if they're flat, it's going to feel like the person is deadpanning or too serious or like even not quite lifelike in a way. So the fact that you have like a really nice catch really stood out to me because it makes that much of a difference in like the portrait, even if it's just like the subconscious thing, like that they're not registering, it makes it more appealing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that is hard to do, especially if you don't have lighting. So for people
Yeah.
who are using natural light, and again, when I say this, I'm just talking to the viewers who are maybe looking to learn from our pictures. If you don't have flash, use a big window. Like those make
Yeah,
beautiful catch lights.
absolutely.
But thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just it's a great note and like it's something small that it's not always thought about, but like it makes a huge difference. So I like the composition. I love that like it's tight on her toes, but they're not cut off. I feel like one of my weaknesses, and I'll admit this, which is why it stands out to me, is that I tend to crop and it cuts off just like a little bit of the foot. But like if you're gonna take a picture with the foot in it, the whole foot should be in it
Right.
essentially. So compositionally, like that is absolutely wonderful. Again, she's engaging. I love that like you can get the texture in her hair, like it's super crisp. I love those lines. And it's like it's a little messy. Like we feel like she's human, we're relating to her. And like it looks like she's just like waiting to hear a story from a friend. Like I feel connected with this photo, which I love. Um, I think my only thing, and hearing your story actually helped a lot with you saying that it was like an overcast day and that it was in January. I was going to say the background isn't quite as engaging as in your other work, but knowing the context behind it now, this probably would have been the exact same way a photo I would have taken would have turned out. So I like that you also stayed true to it. And like, I feel like she pops out of it and it doesn't feel like you really adjusted like hues or tones too much. It just feels almost like it was taken right this way out of camera.
Yeah, and it really was. It didn't make I didn't make too many changes to this, but I
Hmm.
definitely didn't touch the background too much.
Hmm.
What challenge that this photo brought to me, and maybe one day some of you guys out there listening will experience, was wearing black gloves on a black
Yeah,
jacket with black this was
I did
so
notice that.
awesome to bring out because if you look, you can see the hairs and where they start from
Hmm.
here and where they are separated from here and where the gloves are.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was the, and then black boots. That was the biggest challenge when editing because as editors, we love to either lift the blacks or crush the blacks. And
yeah.
if you lift the blacks, you get too much haze, especially in a dark portrait like
Hmm.
this. And if you crush the blacks, they blend
Yep.
together. So yeah, shooting on a forecast day, like you said, I would have loved to pull a little more color out of the background. But I'm glad
Hmm.
that see you got to hear the story because yeah, it was challenging and we were set out there to shoot and
Yeah.
that's what we did. um,
Yeah. And hey, on that note too, something that it kind of touches back on contracts, but like essentially like artistic release to like do what you will with the photos based on your best judgment. I would say that that falls under it because given the lighting situations, like if you're getting paid to shoot this for a client, then like this is the best edit.
yep.
And honestly, like your judgment should be trusted. And they could be like, why isn't this more engaging to me? And you're like, well, there was X, Y, and Z to factor in, and that's my artistic judgment, which is why you should have that clause in there too.
You are hitting all the points right now because I have something like that in there because the thing is in this is going to sound a little odd to people who may not shoot weddings. Sometimes people spend money on the photographer, which is fine and dandy, but they don't spend money on the venue. And so I've gotten paid the same as like I would a really upscale venue, and I show up to like a really budget venue, which is fine. I mean, you pick what you want, but then people have unrealistic expectations that by paying your photographer a ton of money, right, you're not gonna see what the venue looks like, right? That suddenly those like exposed beams or like the terrible lighting is gonna go away, and like we bring lighting, but we use it as a tool, and we're only going to show your venue in the best light that it could be. We're not magicians. We can't change the venue completely. So I want to thank you for bringing that up because while nobody's actually come up to me and said it, I've had people who kind of like hint towards that. And we're not magicians.
I've been in the same boat. I have. And people expect that we'll do all this X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, like, you also can only invest so much time into these, especially since you're one person and your editing and like your photography, they're already great, but you can't be like retouching every single photo to make it the most perfect venue on Pinterest or anything. Like that's unreasonable.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I really love the feedback there. And I even think in editing, I could have brought more colors out for sure. But this is super bright. So I was also happy.
I liked the pop of yellow. The pop of yellow was just like, right. It just hit me right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Last year was this last year? I think it was. Yes. We had a day in the winter where it was like negative 25 or 30 degrees here. And, I decided it would be fun to shoot. And so I went out and I did the shoot, and I got back and my fingers are freezing. But this particular subject, she has a travel blog. And so we were just getting some fashion shoots and maybe some images that she could use on her blog. And we went out in the snow. As you could see, it's winter. And this is, what we captured on like a bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to say about this, and actually all of your photos, you're very good at capturing hair. And like, this is a personal note, but like, I don't mind flyaways. I feel like flyaways, it makes the model feel more authentic.
I don't edit flyaways. I don't.
I respect that. I don't either.
I think that they are part of the subject. If there's like one giant flyaway like going straight up, maybe I'll get rid of that. Yeah,
that's
like,
different.
But like all the little flyaways, like you said, I try to get everything as good as we can while you're shooting.
No, I think it's beautiful just as is in that way. And I just wanted to mention it because I've noticed the hair on like all of these has really stood out to me, and like I appreciate that. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Also, I'm impressed. I want to say I'm impressed with the way that the light is hitting her glasses. I guess if people haven't been like working with flash or anything before.
I can give you a cool tip for that. Yes. Okay. So I did this. So I met up with somebody from TikTok named Hector, and we exchanged photography portraits. And so I had him do it. I actually didn't have him do it as much, and I could still see the glare, and I was upset at myself for it. But here is my tip. So let me pull myself up. So you guys see me with my glasses, right? So right now my light is in an extreme angle where you're not going to see it, but here you could see it. So to get rid of the light, you're not going to see it in the photo because it's such a small detail, but here you can see the glare. You're going to have your subject. I'm going to exaggerate it so you can see it. Tilt their glasses like this. I'm exaggerating it. So down, but just slightly. And so what that's going to do is when you can see the glare and you tilt it down, that goes away. Other than that, making sure that your light is high enough so that you get, so you don't get the glare. So. Thank you. That's a good point to bring up because I feel like a lot of people can take that away.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that like I noticed it right away because like I took lighting and stuff like in college, and I won't say I'm an expert, but I noticed that right away that the glare wasn't like on her eyes. And like you still have a little bit of that catch,
Mhm.
but it's okay because it's not taking away from her face as the subject of like the photo.
Right.
So I wanted to mention that.
Thanks.
But yeah, it's well lit. I love like the snowy tones. I think this is a little cooler than most of the other images, but I'm okay with it because it's the dead of winter and she pops right out. Like I think everything is balanced color wise. I think my only note is the left hand side is just a little empty for me.
Yeah.
I like that you have that bridge line leaning you down, but I'm almost wondering if this was taken in portrait versus landscape,
You
if it
know,
would have felt like a little more complete.
that's a really good thought. I never even thought about that. Like, so yeah, yeah, something like this, right?
Yeah, and then you're led right through the photo with
That
the bridge.
I never even thought about that when I was shooting that. That's a great idea. And now that you mentioned it, like in looking at this, there's less color in her hand here. I wish and it was
Mhm.
cold, so it was harder. But
Yeah,
I wish I could
I'm
get the
sure you had to
color.
take some of the reds out a little bit.
I did. And her jacket, believe it or not, it was a really bright red. Like
Hmm.
but you know what? I did not even think about that, and you're right. Because if this wasn't snow and we had the wooden panels here, I think that would have added
Hmm.
more interesting details. But because there's
Yeah.
snow on the ground, you already know there's snow because you could see it here, you could see it on the trees. I think
Hmm.
cropping it would have actually made it a better photo because this is just blank. Um,
Yeah. The
Good
one thing that
thoughts.
I will say though, with like having that information over there, is you're right on that line. So it's more interesting than if she was just facing you straight on, like leaning against the bridge or something. So like the visual interest is still there because you have her on that like roll of thirds, and like she's not like straight onto the camera, like she's kind of just glancing at it, which is very intriguing like when you're looking at it. But I think it even like pulls you in just a little bit with the crop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the feedback. I think that's really good. Moving on to the next one, we got this one. This one is a very interesting photo. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about this one. This is with I've worked with her a couple times now. Her name's Ying Yi, and she lives in Madison, so it's actually a little bit of a drive. Last time she came to Milwaukee, but this one was actually shot in Madison at a arboretum. So back to the point that
Mm.
Kirsten and I make: locations are free. You can find good locations. Just scout, find them. You don't have to pay money. But yeah, other than that, just a summer portrait session.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to say, well, I have like two things that just like they hit me when I look at this photo. I love her hands. Like hands are super hard to photograph, but the fact that like they're just so delicately like stacked and like you can see her fingertips, like it is very visually appealing and it's very soft, it's very feminine, it's just very beautiful. And then kind of leading into that, her skin is absolutely gorgeous.
It's
Like the
glowing for
way that
sure.
it's lit, yeah, it's glowing. It's just like it's smooth, it's dreamy. Like she looks like she's about to just like hop off a runway somewhere. Like
And
I'm not even
I
kidding.
think part of that too is so what I did for this one, and photographers, this is a great tip
Hmm.
too. Sorry, I keep stopping, Kirsten. I can talk a lot
No,
about
great stuff.
my images because I know how these were taken more than yours. And I think there's a lot of technical knowledge that can be learned. So
Yeah.
I shot this with one light, off camera
Hmm.
flash, just like the other ones. But the thing here, photographers, is if you only have one off camera flash, but you want to get more dynamic images, I used the sun as a backlight. So her
Yep.
hair and the sun coming through the
It's on
top,
fire. It's
yeah,
great.
it's on fire because of the sun. So if you don't have another light, position your model or your subject so that they are the sun is behind them, and yeah, they're going to be dark. But if you have another light, use that to fill in the subject. And that's how basically you get the look of two lights with one. And it'll
Yeah,
save you some money.
that's a great note. That's an absolutely great note. And that was what I was going to say too, is like, I personally, stylistically, I love a blurred background. And I love like, just like the detailing that's going on with the light hitting in the different areas. Like that is something I do almost all the time in my photos. So when I saw that too, like that really stood out to me. I think my only critiques, I think she feels just a little crooked to me. Just a little.
I kept playing with that. Oh my gosh. I'm glad that you brought that up because I struggled
with this.
It's like
so slight though.
I struggled with this so much because, you know, when you crop, so obviously this isn't the raw, but you know, when you crop like certain ways and then it gets rid of like the bottom, I'm like, I was struggling. Like, okay, I want enough.
And her fingertips are right at the very edge there. So like it's super hard. Yeah.
And I feel like part of that too is like, do you see how this elbow here is sticking out further to the right? So it's like, if I centered her body, then her elbow is like on the edge. And it's like, I struggle. I'm glad that you brought this up because I struggled so hard with that. And
that was going to be my other note actually, was like, she's kind of centered, but she's not quite centered. It has to be like almost like one or the other. And she's like close, but just close enough that I notice.
It's like, pick what you want to center. Do you want to center her body or do you want to center her arms? And
but honestly, that I would have struggled with this image too. Like, totally honest. But I think it's a phenomenal one.
That's a really good note to add. I really appreciate that just because see, you can see it too. Like, this isn't like something that like I struggled with. This is something that you can be like, yeah, that was hard to do. Like, and I think that's a good note. Going back, what I would do to fix that, like you said, I would probably shoot it a little bit wider so I have the room to play with, and maybe taking a step to the left to try to get her.
It's always good to shoot wide.
Yeah. So
one final note on this. I just want to say that I think out of all of the portraits that you sent me and what I've seen in your work, this is probably one of my favorite poses because I think it is a little bit different than what you usually do. I think it adds just a little more like intrigue, and it kind of reminds me of the senior portrait I did with the girl with her hands on her face, like so. But it's just like a little different than your normal portrait. And I think that you were super successful in this image. And you say you're not creative, but you are. And I just wanted to emphasize that.
Thanks so much. Yeah. I think we all struggle, right? So I struggle with creativity. It's more like we're not creative. It's like I struggle with creativity. You struggle with technicality sometimes. And we struggle with everything, but we have those like weak points, but we also have our strong points. So definitely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the last image, may I add. And boy, how do I explain this one? I got so much hate on TikTok for this. Not hate, like, you know, I'm just saying like haters, right? From the
I'm just
haters,
curious to see where this is going.
I got so much hate from the haters because they were like, oh my God. Hold on. I need to full screen myself for this. They were like, oh my God, Alex, you did teal and orange. You paid like a $10 preset and you did teal and orange, dude. And, you know, I want to say, if you think that the color that I got from her skin tones and the color that I put on the bridge came from a $10 preset without any adjusting, you are out of your freaking mind, because the time that I took to do the coloring was so ridiculous. But anyway, I don't hate on people, and I think presets are a great way to learn. I didn't use any presets. That would have been great if I had a preset that I could just be like, oh, well, my photos are beautiful now. But that's not how it works. And I actually have thought about selling some of my presets that I've made. And
I would be interested.
Oh, thanks. And I will tell you right now, if you buy my preset, you're not going to put it on a photo and be like, oh, this is beautiful. You're going to put it on a photo and then adjust a couple things to make it match your photo. So presets are a great way to learn. I don't want photographers out there to think that they are bad, but to the people who thought this was a $10 preset, you're wrong. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm so glad you gave me background on this before, because I have so many things that I want to say. Okay, first of all, this was my absolute favorite, and it was my absolute favorite because of the color. I just want to put that out there. So I'm not hating, I am loving it. Second of all, I did not start using presets until like 6 months ago. And I merely did it because I'm shooting at such like a higher volume than I used to be.
Yep.
And I needed to streamline my editing process and quicken it up.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you took, I'm sure that you've bought presets. We've all bought presets. I'm sure that you've made your own presets, and I'm sure that you've made adjustment to other people's presets because they're closer to your
always
style.
adjust.
Exactly. And I think that photographers who are hating on presets, you're a snob, and you don't want to welcome the new photographers in the community because presets aren't talked about as much, and they can help people out. If you go through and you look at all these knobs and you're like, oh, and then you pull it back and you're like, oh, that's how they got that color and that's how they did this. That's how you learn. So I just want to put that out there. Presets, in my opinion,
I have a note on that too.
Sure.
On the alternate side, when I was first starting out and I didn't use any presets, I thought that like you had to invest in presets to become a good photographer. Like I felt like everyone I know had like a certain set of presets, and like I just wasn't willing to invest in them because I wanted to continue to find like what I like and just kind of like mess around and see what appealed to me. And so I resisted them for a really long time because I was like, it doesn't define my work in the way that I want it to. Like I like the intentionality and the time I spent individually doing everything. So I just thought that was interesting because we're like coming from two ends of the spectrum, but I think there's a lot of truth in both.
Yeah. I started not using presets as well, but not because I didn't want to invest in them, because I was that snobby photographer. But I didn't go around on the internet telling people, don't use presets, your work is terrible. I sat at home saying,
don't be an internet troll.
Right. I was not an internet troll. I was a troll to myself. I was like, no, I'm never going to use presets, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's for people who don't have skill, blah, blah, blah. But again, I was never a troll, and I respected people for the choices they made. It was just myself. And I would tell myself, you know, you're not a real photographer if that's what you do. But if other people do it, it's like that's their choice. But like Kirsten said, when we have all this work that we need to get through, especially wedding photos, where we come home and, you know, I don't know how many you deliver, Kirsten, but I think to be honest, I under deliver wedding photos because of the amount of time I put in. I tell my couples from a full day of shooting to expect between 300 to 450 images. And I know photographers who deliver a lot more, and that's fine. So let's put that into perspective. If you deliver 1,000 images, do you really have time to sit there and go through 1,000 images and develop a style for each scene? Your prices will be through the roof. Yeah. So I'm glad that we kind of got off tangent there, just because I think it's an important note for photographers to learn about that. And it doesn't make you less of a photographer. But if you use only presets and you don't edit, I would encourage you to just go into the sliders tab and play around with them. Make sure that, you know, it's nice and perfect, and learn what each of the settings do. So I appreciate your difference in where we came from, Kirsten.
I love it too. Honestly, it's been really interesting to like hear this. It's so cool. It's so cool.
And back on topic, right?
Yes, back on topic. Okay, so I love the color. I love all of that. I don't think it looks like you used a preset or anything on it. Like, I feel like this looks like it was done very intentionally to me. I do love the pose. And I know that you're very intentional about like your cropping and stuff. Like you actually did a video about this, which I loved watching, like where to crop, where to cut off. in terms of like how much of somebody's body you're showing. And I think that you did a really good execution on that on here. I want to say I'm happy that you like popped that arm up on the railing, because like it just kind of, it makes it more casual. It makes it seem more candid. I think my only big note, and it's not even necessarily about this photo, was I saw a lot of reoccurrence of a similar setup in the other images you showed me, in terms of like the bridge and the way that it's actually photographed, and then in relation to the subject. If that makes sense.
Do you mean in regards to composition or in regards to styling?
Yes. In regards to composition. I mean, I love the leading lines, don't get me wrong, but in most of the photos you had this hard line leading you through to the subject, and then sometimes there was like a mirror one. But I do like the foreground in this. I just noticed like compositionally a little more variation, and this is only one image out of like a whole setting, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and I
just noticed they tend to be the same.
Yeah, and I actually want to show you something because I think that it's a really, really good talking point. So give me 1 second. I'll pull them up here.
Absolutely.
But I want to start by saying I absolutely love the conversations that we had today, because I think that it's going to give a lot of information to photographers and help them in just looking at our images as professionals and seeing that we make mistakes. Like, yeah, they're smaller, but that's only because we've been doing it for however long we've been doing it.
After a lot of practice and a lot of failure too.
Yeah, and we still get failures. Like you're only seeing these because they're what we're showing you. Okay, the one that I wanted to show, or the thing that I wanted to show you, is recently, and I've been doing this a little too much lately. I'll be the first to admit. I've been doing these low angle shots and I've been loving it. I've been getting creative. And that's kind of what I think you were getting at. Like, and I agreed with you because for years I've been struggling with my portraiture. And I'm getting the color right. That for me, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying this is what I like. I'm getting the color right. I'm getting the posing right. I'm like, oh, these are looking beautiful. And then the one thing that I was missing, I was like, why are all my portraits boring? And then I started getting on the freaking ground. I started getting on the ground and getting dirty just to get these freaking like shots.
Anything to get the shot.
Yeah, anything to get the shot. And
can you tell us what lens you were shooting on with these? Just because I think like what lens you were on. I think that can be helpful too.
Yeah. So for this, these shots, I was shooting with the 24 to 70 2.8.
Excellent.
That is a freaking beautiful portrait lens.
It's amazing.
If you guys want to see the exposure, that's before, that's after.
Gorgeous.
Like, guys, it happens in post. I'm sorry. We're exposing ourselves. We're editors. So, that's what I wanted to add. Just if you guys aren't playing with the angles, and that's what I struggled with for so many years, try going to the side, try going down, try shooting up, down. Like, if it's bad, just don't use it. So
get funky, like be experimental, try things that you might not think will work, and then be surprised if they actually work. Like, I will constantly tell my clients, like, while I'm shooting, like, okay, you're going to think I'm crazy for doing what I'm about to do, but if it gets us the shot that I want it to get us, it's worth it.
For sure. I totally agree with you. So, well, that was a great critique session. I really enjoyed that.
I loved that.
The last thing that I want to talk about before we, kind of wrap up, when you were, I get a lot of questions in my DMs on TikTok and Instagram about photographers who want to take their business and make it they want to book paid shoots because nobody has paid them ever, and they think that nobody will ever want to pay them, but they see that their work is really good, and they're like, how do I make that first step? So if there's maybe one tip that you could give them, what would you say to maybe land that first paid client?
So I want to tell you how I got my first paid client. I was in college. I had shot like an elopement and like a handful of like different things here and there, all for free up until that point. I was studying photography, and there was someone I knew who was getting married. And I was like, hey, I'm learning. This is my portfolio. If you let me shoot your wedding, I will only charge you this amount, and I will work so hard to give you the best experience, the best images, if you are willing to take this chance on me, just because I'm starting out and I hadn't been paid for a gig yet. It was honestly, I think about that a lot. It was a leap of faith. And to be honest, I definitely undercharged myself, which I could shoot myself in the foot for now. I worked a 12-hour day.
That's totally cool, because I think we've all done that.
Yeah. I worked a 12-hour day with them. I probably way over delivered the images, but the important part was I went from literally just shooting for free, shooting for friends, family on a whim, to actually getting paid for something. And it was almost like something in my head shifted, I guess, like mentally. And I was like, okay, I know I'm good enough to get paid for this. So what would I actually like to be making? What do I think my work and experience equal right now? And how can I convey that to clients while still doing this? So I started giving out my pricing. And to start out, I think I would only charge like $75 for just like a standard hour photo shoot. And that included my editing time too. And then over the years, every 6 months or so, I've increased my pricing to adjust for how much equipment I have, what subscriptions do I have, how much time am I putting into this? Have I gotten better? Do I need to charge more because I'm in higher demand? That type of thing. It's all been a learning curve. And every few months, I take time to just sit down and evaluate it.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you have some clients that maybe started off with you when you were charging, whatever it was, 50, 75 bucks,
Yeah.
who have stuck with you and loved your work so much that they were willing to pay your new prices, right?
I did. And honestly, too, with one of my favorite things, I consider myself like a lifestyle photographer. And part of that is I believe that when I connect with a client, a lot of the times they do continue to come back to me for many sessions. So I actually do a 10% off for returning clients. And that's not like I think my work is worth 10% less. It's because we have this relationship, and that relationship is worth giving that small monetary fee up. It's not about the money. It's about the returning business and the constant support, as a small business. It's so meaningful.
That's more of a business move, because I know people will do this when booking weddings, right? They'll advertise, let's say, their wedding price at, and this varies greatly on your area and your experience, but let's say they'll say wedding pricing, their first package is like $2,000, but then you get to meet them, and before the client even asks you, you're already undercutting yourself, and you're saying, well, I know it says $2,000, but for you I can do $1,500, and they haven't even asked you to lower your price. You're just worried about booking. And I think that what you're doing is not that. It's more of a business move in regards to keeping returning clients happy. And
it gives me more business over the years.
Right. And they feel like they have they kind of are exclusive, right? Because not everybody can get that discount with you. And I like that.
Exactly.
I think that's a good move.
And I don't discount a lot of my sessions, to be completely frank. I'll do custom packages depending on what a client needs. But in terms of Black Friday deals or anything, I don't offer that kind of stuff. And that's a business choice on my end.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not to knock anybody who's doing Black Friday deals.
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. It's just a matter of how you want to convey your brand. And that's why you'll never see, for example, Apple having crazy Black Friday deals. It's not that they can't afford the markdown. It's literally, and if you read articles on this, I've read them, they're crazy. It's because they want to keep the perceived value of their products in high in high regards, I guess you could say. And that's not for everybody. It's however you want to market and brand yourself. So I think that was great advice. So I think we lost Kirsten there for a second. Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, awesome. So, Kirsten, thank you so much for joining me, giving photographers out here so many tips. Before we go, I want you to plug your social media. Where can everybody follow you if they liked your work, if they want to book you Pennsylvania? Which area?
Pennsylvania, New York, but Central. If you want to book Kirsten in the Central Pennsylvania, New York area, where can they reach you? Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is my website, which is literally just Kirsten Hartzell Photography. If you Google it, it will come up. The second thing, I'd say I'm probably the most active on Instagram and on TikTok, and that's just Kirsten Hartzell Photography. Again, you can also find me on Facebook that way. So just Kirsten Hartzell Photography for everything.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I think it was a great session. Thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you are new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram. I post tons of content now, daily. Now it's daily. It used to be weekly. Now it's daily. So so feel free to follow me there and subscribe to the channel for more. And if you want to book mentorship calls, I just started listing them on my website, alexandernava.com. So feel free to go into the booking section and let me know how I can help you grow.